The modern IT infrastructure often includes remote locations spread across distributed networks. So that could include a branch office, locations that might be abroad, or even devices that are behind a firewall, which are complicated to reach. So, how exactly can PRTG help with distributed monitoring? Let's have a look at the way PRTG works. Every PRTG installation has two basic elements, the core server and the local probe. The core server is the brain of the monitoring setup, and this is where all the monitoring data ends up for analysis. It stores the configuration of your PRTG instance, it runs the web interface for managing your monitoring, and handles all the reporting and alerting that you configure. On every core server there's also a local probe, and this will be installed on the same device as the core server. The local probe is responsible for performing the actual monitoring. It queries your devices on the network by using sensors and sends the monitoring data back to the core server for analysis, processing and storage. So if you have a ping sensor, which is checking the uptime of a device, it's the local probe that sends the ping, receives the reply, and then forwards the data back to the core server. But what happens if your network is distributed? This is where remote probes can help. They work in the same way as the local probe, but instead they run in the remote locations themselves. All of the monitoring traffic stays within the remote location and only the results are sent back to the core. This means that traffic is kept to a minimum, and to keep everything secure, you can connect a remote probe to the core server through a firewall and even over the internet using a secure SSL connection from anywhere in the world. A typical setup you find in today's IT landscape are distributed networks that incorporate multiple operating systems and platforms. What if you want to extend your monitoring setup to include a Linux network, for example? To do so, we provide the Multiplatform Probe, which lets you monitor additional areas of your distributed network. As the amount of sensors being used in your monitoring setup can quickly add up, you can also balance your system load with remote probes. If the local probe is overloaded with sensors that you really need, you can consider moving some of those sensors across to your remote probes. Spreading the workload among multiple probe devices can really help keep your monitoring efficient, and with our commercial license, you can add as many probes as you need. Whether you're bringing together the separate elements of your distributed network, load balancing your monitoring setup, or centrally managing your own customers' infrastructure, distributed monitoring in PRTG lets you benefit from a single central overview so that you don't miss a thing. Start distributed monitoring with a 30-day trial of PRTG today so that nothing is beyond your reach.